Obviously we finished practice 14 today, and like I was just talking to the guys about, I thought this was a really good spring for us. I thought that really at every position group we saw improvement, and that's the goal when you come into spring, is that every time we take the field, you're striving for somewhere in your game to improve, to get better, to find that growth that we talked about before spring. And I thought for the most part, every guy at every position group in some way, shape, or form found that. Not every day was perfect. Some days one guy or one position group maybe didn't get to where we wanted to get to, but bounced back, which is a good sign. In the end of it all, we get a chance to go out and play in front of our fans on Saturday, which should be a great night on Saturday night and really well attended. We won't play it like a game with an actual score. We just can't do it because of the lack of numbers on the offensive line, but we will have basically a live scrimmage for about 100 plays or so, which should be good, with a pretty good competition at the end in the red area that I know our guys are excited about. So should be a good night. Like I said, effective spring-wise, but also the beauty of it is I think all the guys recognize we got plenty of work to do. Like I said, we got a lot of players coming in June. We need a really good summer collectively, and so that we can put ourselves in a really good position for fall camp.
Steve, is there an area or multiple areas where in February you thought, I don't know, whereas now you feel, okay, that's pretty good. We're good there?
No, I don't.
Or do you not look at it?
I don't look at it like that. Not at this time of year. This time of year is about, like I said, about the growth, right? At every position, are we improving? I would say probably the one area of just anything, because of a little bit of the moving parts there, was at safety. There's a lot of new faces at that position. I thought it went well. I thought today was actually maybe their best day back there from a communication standpoint and being on the same page, and from a confidence in making the calls and doing it collectively together. But the rest of the positions, it was how are we improving, and are we as a staff doing everything in our power to put our players in the best position to improve and to have success so they can continue to grow the way we want them to.
Defensively, where do you feel like obviously you mentioned the safety
Yeah.
position, but as a whole, how do you think things have improved?
Well, I think it's been good. Our run defense has been really good all spring, and we have some pretty good runners that we got to try to stop. And I thought that's been a really kind of bright spot defensively. I thought kind of the last, I guess it would be 3 to 4 practices, I thought our pass rush has really improved. I thought that's been some individual growth by specific players that have created that. I think Justice Finkley has really come on the last about week, and that has shown his ability to kind of pressure the quarterback. But I think schematically some of the games and different things that we're doing, the guys, their understanding of those things, the pressures, the games, and the timing of them all have caused some issues, and that's been a real positive for us as well.
Is there anybody who won't participate or be limited?
Yeah, Bijan will probably be limited Saturday. He's got kind of an ankle sprain, nothing serious, but he'll be relatively limited. Andre Carrick is nursing an ankle as well. But outside of that, I foresee everybody else playing.
Quarterback at this point, you're almost done with this
Yeah.
phase. Tell us what you see.
I think two things that have stood out to me in both scrimmages that we've had thus far, both guys have played really well. I've been very impressed with their playmaking ability, their ability to, when there's times to take their shots, they're taking their shots, and not that every throw is perfect, but they've been really effective on third down. Both guys have used their legs well. I think Hudson, naturally, some of the game management things come really natural to him, just having been doing it with us. I think Quinn is a very quick study. There's things that come to him that are new, or a situational thing that comes to him that is new, but he really takes the coaching and tries to apply it the next time out. And I think both guys have really earned a lot of respect of their teammates in their approach to their preparation, and then ultimately their ability to execute. But you know, in the end, like from where that position is today, from where we were a year ago, I'm really pleased. You know, I just think we're at a place right now where we're playing very good football at the position. I think at times we need to be a little better around them, but that's all part of the growth.
Should fans read in anything about who takes the first snap?
No, and I'll say this, you know, unfortunately, I wish nobody would show up with a camera and you guys wouldn't have your phones and we wouldn't put it on TV so that we could really show a lot of the things that we're doing. But in this day and age, everybody wants to watch and see what we're going to do. So we'll probably be pretty vanilla Saturday night, and it may not be as exciting for everybody and the oohs and the ahs, but we'll try to go out and execute and play good football.
So since you guys are using a different format this weekend and you have had numbers of the offensive line, have you been able to evaluate the way you wanted to your offense concerning those numbers?
Yeah, no, I think we have. You know, Coach Flood has done a really good job of rolling guys at the position. So we've, you know, it's not just been two groups all the time. It's kind of been rolling, trying to keep a semblance of a couple of the guys that have played more football. This weekend we'll essentially have two groups. And so, you know, you just have to manage the calls with what you're doing to make sure like I said, we're putting our guys in the best position to have success. You know, and that's no different than in any game. If you're having a hard time blocking somebody, you've got to be creative with what you're doing and trying to put our guys in the best spot to create running lanes and create time for the quarterback.
At the receiver, you know, we know Worthy and Whittington, but who are the guys that are, you know, fighting it out?
Yeah, I mean, I know I've touched on Jay Witt, but I thought he's had a really good spring. I've been really proud of him and just the way that he's come back. Because I know it was hard for him when he got injured last season and then trying to come back at the end of the year. He was kind of a shell of himself. He just wasn't the same player that he was the first half of the season. And I think the dedication that he's put into his own body and his preparation showed this spring. He's had a very good spring. I think Xavier's has a really good spring. You know, I know he's not the biggest guy, but he's really tough. He's tough-minded. He plays hard and is an explosive player. I think Isaiah Nair, I think this spring was huge for him. Just getting acclimated to our style of play, obviously the system. But you see the playmaking ability. You see, you know, he's a real weapon on deep balls in the red area. He's a big physical guy. And Marcus Washington, I thought, kind of has picked up kind of where he left off from last year, where he was kind of a special teams blocker the first half of the season, kind of grew into a role as a regular down receiver for us, and has come back this spring. I think kind of just building on where he was, which is a positive. The rest of the guys after that, you know, one of the keys to this all is, one, you have to know what to do. You have to know how to do it, and then you got to know why we're trying to do it that way. And the rest of the guys are all kind of in the middle of, sometimes I think they kind of know what to do. Sometimes I think they kind of know how to do it. And sometimes I think they kind of know why we're doing it, but it's not consistent enough for where we need to be.
We all have a lot of guys at tight end, obviously, fighting for snaps. Jatavian might just be the most flat-out talented guy. You know, what kind of growth have you seen from him, and what does he need to do to still elevate himself over those other guys? I
think JT is a really cool example of, here's a kid who was a 5-star recruit coming to the University of Texas. And in this day and age, it's like, if the guy doesn't play as a true freshman and start as a 5-star, what's wrong? You know, something's wrong with him. You know, it's just this idea of instant gratification. You know, everybody builds these kids up and they're just going to walk in and win the Mackey Award when they show up. And I give JT and Gunner a lot of credit for putting in the work last year. I thought Coach Banks did a really good job of, I know they weren't every week players for us offensively, but they worked at their craft. Neither of them, when they arrived here, were comfortable, you know, blocking defensive ends and blocking in the C area and doing, you know, pulling on counter and doing all those things, but they worked at their craft. And come back to spring ball now, looks like two completely different players. And we all know the skill set they have in the passing game, but to be a tight end in our system, I've said this numerous times to y'all, that the quarterback is the most important position in sports, But the tight end in our offense is probably the second most important position because of all that we ask them to do, from formations to motions to the run game to the pass game, route running, pass protection. There's a lot we put on those guys' plate. And those two guys have come a long way. JT is a great example of it. I thought he's had a really good spring for us. He has really evolved as a player. I think he's a much more confident and comfortable blocker, but yet he's definitely a weapon in the passing game.
You guys clearly did a great job of bringing in offensive guys through the portal for this offseason, obviously with Nayor, Billingsley, Quinn, and then another guy you can't speak about at this moment. Was that kind of a point of emphasis for you guys to really beef up, especially at the skill position?
I think that this idea of the portal has changed a lot of college football. And, we've tried not to be the team that just brings in 17 transfers because we're a new staff and let's just bring in a bunch of new players and move on from what we have. I really tried to take our time to evaluate our team, evaluate our players, and then have an idea of what type of team we want to be and where are some of the holes and where are the needs. And I felt like every player that we've brought in so far out of the portal is kind of filling a need. And that's the idea for us. Because ultimately for me, I want to bring in freshmen. I want to develop them in our program and build a foundation for them in our program to move forward year in and year out. But the portal has provided an opportunity to fulfill needs for a variety of reasons, right? Why do you have needs? Maybe you get multiple injuries at a position. Maybe you have position changes, and so there's a gap there. Maybe you have another kid on your roster that decided to transfer himself. So there's needs that present themselves. And I think offensively, with some of the guys that we've brought in, they're filling needs that ultimately are going to make us a better team. But again, we haven't jumped at every guy at every position that goes in the portal. We've been very selective. We tried to be, really evaluate, every player that comes into our program, whether that's as a player, as a person, as a student, to make sure that they can thrive and excel at the University of Texas. And so far, so good. I think it's been very beneficial for us.
A quick tack on that. Do you expect roster movement when spring is completed?
Potentially.
Guys either don't like where they are or?
Yeah, potentially. I don't know yet. We'll have our exit meetings next week and kind of see what happens.
Coach, speaking of special teams, is there anybody who stepped up or that you're grooming to be a disruptor for you this year?
I think last year we were tremendous at blocking kicks, and we don't want to lose that side of our game. We want to be aggressive in special teams, want to be an attack-oriented football team. But I think there's an area in the return game where we can really grow, whether it's kick return or punt return, and we've got some really capable people. I mean, we know what Deshaun has done throughout his career. I think Xavier has some room in there where he can be a factor. I think Keelan Robinson can be a factor there. But I think the return game is something that we tried to really emphasize this spring, and I think we're seeing that. I think in the punt game, like I said, Isaac, the second half of spring, or really the last 2/3 of spring, he's been tremendous. And both scrimmages, he has punted the ball really well for us, which has been a real positive. And I'd also say at long snapper, we knew what Edwards was, but sometimes now it's your turn to really be it, with Mater being gone. And I think Edwards has really stepped up as well. But I think we're getting more and more of the body types that we're looking for on teams, which is you want to be long and you want to be fast. And, that's, when you really look at our recruiting, that's kind of, in a nutshell, the types of players that we're trying to get in here and to fit our style, not only on offense, defense, but on teams.
Have there been any walk-ons who, with the limited depth, have kind of put themselves in contention over the summer to maybe compete in the fall?
Yeah, I think Michael Taft has been a guy who has really stepped up. He's just a really natural football player. He's a guy that understands leverage, understands scheme, recognizes offensively what you're trying to do, and then plays well, plays smart, communicates really well. And he did it in high school and has showed up, and last season was kind of that way, and now here he is, whether it's on defense or on special teams, has been kind of the guy that you're referencing.
Jalen Ford sounds
Yeah.
like has taken a step.
Sure has.
What do most excited about with him, and what have you seen?
Jalen, I thought he had a good spring. You know, he, like everybody, the growth factor. And Jalen's was never about the ability. It was about the consistency mentally to go for it every day. And I think that he really embraced the opportunity that was presented to him. You know, he's a big physical guy who can run. He's a good tackler. And I thought that he kind of took a step this spring to being that inside linebacker and being that comfortable and being a good run stopper. And we saw multiple times in the run game where he was extremely physical, you know, taking on guards, taking on tight ends and different things, and minimizing the space, right? Because in run game, right, we're trying to create running lanes and create space. And he did a good job of closing the distance and minimizing that space and being physical at the point of attack. But I think all that, again, is coming with confidence of doing it and being kind of with that first unit and playing confidently, and it's showing for him.
Coach, when you have,
Two last ones for Coach.
when you have a successful spring that you're talking about, what do you do to make sure to challenge the guys not to lose that momentum, you know,
Yeah.
when spring is over?
Yeah, we'll have that discussion. You know, my thing next week, like I said, I'll meet with every player individually all of next week to give them a gauge of where we think they're at in our program, and whether that's as a student, whether that's in the training room, whether that's from a football perspective, whether that's in their personal life, so they know. And then we give them areas of things that we want them to work on over the summer. But more importantly is we got to finish school really well, and we've got to finish up this spring semester, and then when the summer rolls around, we get an influx of another new batch of players. And you know, the NCAA has changed the ruling some now, where we can have a little bit more access to the players as a coaching staff from a meeting standpoint, as well as some on-field training. And so we're going to definitely take advantage of that. We're going to need it, because there's probably going to be a few of these young players that come in the summer that we're going to count on to contribute. And so we've got a lot of work to cut out. But I think more importantly, with all the guys that went through spring, is identifying areas where they can improve this summer and then going to attack it.
Which players have taken the biggest step on the offensive and defensive lines this spring?
You know, I think Hayden Connors had a good spring. I think Cole Hudson's had a really good spring for a guy who just showed up. You know, he's should still be in high school. You know, he's got senior prom. He's a big physical guy. He's a quick learner. I've been impressed with him. I think defensively, I mentioned Justice Finkley. I thought he had a really good last week of practice. Again, another guy who should still be in high school. You know, Byron Murphy's a problem. You know, just the guy is so strong, so quick, powerful. He's been a problem. But I think two guys that, you know, have taken a step, but I know we all want them to keep going is you know, Vernon Broughton is a guy, and Alfred Collins. Those two guys, to me, you know, have a chance to make us feel a little bit different when they're really on point. And I'd say, I don't want to leave this guy out. Travondre Sweat is another guy that we're moving him around a little bit more, and it's been effective. You know, he's excellent against the run, but he has pass rush ability. And so, again, all three of those guys we're talking about is consistency in their play, and that starts with attacking every day, attacking every series, attacking every play. And when they do that, they're a real problem.